Welcome everybody. Happy New Year. This promises to be quite the exciting Road Gateway meeting today. Let's have Cindy Ronald come up and do the pledge and four-way test.
All right, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the four-way test. Jamie, you know. That's it? Oh, you guys are good. Okay, the four-way test of the things we say or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Inspiration, Tommy Drake, one minute away. Tommy. You wouldn't have known, would you?
You're not supposed to know. Okay, so, well, we're going to break down today. El Día de los Muertos es mañana. And, so I thought I would read, a little bit about, El Día de los Muertos. It's like a key holiday in Mexico, and it's moved into all the other South American countries. They all have some form of it. I got to go to one in Guatemala, and it had these kites that were like 20 feet tall, and they had different things on it. It was spectacular. And most of the people make an ofrenda, which is an altar that they do in their house for the ones that have moved on. And they all go to the cemetery tomorrow. And they take marigolds, which is a flower, and candles, and they celebrate their families that are there. And it's a real interesting way to deal with death. So I'm going to read to you a poem written by Pablo Neruda. He was a Chilean. If suddenly you don't exist, if suddenly you don't live, I will continue living. I do not dare. I dare not write it if you die. I will continue living. Because where a man has no voice, there my voice. Where the blacks get beaten up, I can't be dead. When my brothers go to jail, I will go in with them. When my victory, not my victory, but the great victory arrives, even if I am mute, I must speak. I will see her arrive, even if I am blind. No, forgive me if you don't live. If you, my dear, my love, if you have died, all the leaves will fall to my chest. It will rain on my soul night and day. The snow will burn my heart. I will walk with cold and fire and death and snow. My feet will want to go where you sleep, but I will still be alive because you love me about all things untamed. And love because you know that I am not only a man, but all men.
Okay, so visiting Rotarians, do you have any visiting Rotarians? Okay, how about Rotarians with guests?
I don't. Yeah, Elvis and I over guests and Owen Martin and there.
Okay, I have a few announcements. Oh, hi.
I'm with the food bank, I'm the priest. I brought Christina Hager, who is our office manager / admin, HR, everything. She loves Halloween, so I said, you need to come.
Okay.
Josephine is giving.
Great. I asked her what her costume is, and she said she's a barbarian. Well done. You belong here. Okay, I have a few announcements, and if others do, come on up here. So just so you know, nobody in Josephine County has applied to be an outgoing, exchange student. The deadline is today, but we think that they will extend it if we have any high school students interested in that program. We have two new assistant district governors for next year, Tim Finland for Josephine County and Ian Foster for Jackson County. And start thinking about if you have any interest in being involved in the event they resurrected Duck Derby. There's discussion around that. We'll talk later. And I have two other quick announcements. First, I'd like to ask the ladies who worked at the Women's Crisis Support Team auction to just wave or to take a stand. We want to say thank you. This group raised $21,000 in articles. Selling articles of clothing for $1, $2, or $3 and so forth. Unbelievably hard work, stuff I can't do. So thank you for your service. And the next one, Steve Rowe, where are you? It's Steve Rowe's birthday. He has the choice of paying $10 or we're going to sing to him. And he said he would pay 20. So happy birthday, Steve. If you want to put it in the bin for utility box is good or however it goes. Okay, back to the announcements.
Okay, first, there's a green bag, just to remind people, if they just want to bring food in here, we'll arrange to get it to the food bank. So that's just an option that anybody who would like to always has, is to bring it here. I will make sure it gets there. And then this Saturday morning at 8:30, we're meeting with Elmer's, because this is our cleanup day for our the parkway. So I have lots of people signed up, and I'm looking forward to seeing them at 8:30 at Elmer's, and then we'll do the parkway cleanup, and that's Steve, Lutz and Lisa, Derek, Fred, and Mary, Jan Jones, Gina, Marie, Patrice, Lisa Higgins, Jamie Gould, Don Booth, Ashley Bob, and Debbie Graham, and anybody else who would like to join us. It's a lot of fun, and we will have, I'm going up today to pick up the vests. So we have vests so people see us, and the yellow bags and the grabbers and gloves and all that stuff. So I'll be in the back of my car, and I will be waiting to meet you. We'll eat at Elmer's and then go out and clean. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know, I work for the Boys and Girls Club, and our events committee, as I was walking up the door, said if I didn't talk about Keys for Kids, I was going to be in trouble. And they handed me a stack of save the dates. So Keys for Kids, for those of you who haven't gone, it is our dueling pianos fundraiser. And I heard it's a blast. This will be my first time going, but I heard it's a ton of fun. It'll be on Friday, November 22nd. And if anybody is interested, I'll have these save the dates with information about how to buy tickets. Thank you.
Just want to remind Greg and Mary Millard, Lisa Higgins and Val Lovelace that you have been appointed as judges today. You're going to be awarding a first, a second, and a third place for today's event. And then again tonight at the celebration at Sweeney's, you'll be judging there as well. So, thank Halloween.
You take bribes? What does it take? I'll buy you something, okay? Who else does it? I'll buy you. Lisa? I'm being honest. They'll be ones dishonest. I think I'll be honest. Okay, reminder that December 12th is gonna be the backpack stuffing day, so please keep that on your calendar. We need most everybody there. Stuffing backpacks for the kids, and then that's an evening thing, and then there'll also be the next day or the day after, it will be the following Monday or Tuesday. Some of us will volunteer to take backpacks to the schools as well, so be ready for that. That's December 12th, Thursday. And then that same weekend December 13th, is Foreign Exchange Student Weekend, and we need a lot of bodies to help with that event. And even though we may or may not have students outgoing, we will be hosting that weekend event here, which involves interviewing potential students and their parents, and also providing little meals those days. And we also need a few families willing to host 1 or 2 or 3 kids for that weekend as well. Just basically provide them with a bedroom and then drop them off and pick them up from different locations. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and I want to point out Leonora back there, painting up a storm. She volunteered to help us with our little mini fundraiser today. For $10, you can get something painted on your arm or your face or whatever, and that money's going toward a $200 goal. We're trying to get our next utility box funded. And Doug Walker, I want to thank for donating the first $50. He paid for anybody on the staff at Wild River who wanted to have something painted. So that was really nice of you. Thank you. Okay, time for Jim Huber to introduce our guest speakers.
Before I introduce them, about a year ago, I heard both of them speak at the Empty Bowls fundraiser for the collaborative effort between the food bank and options. And I thought I would really like to have them come and speak to us. So it's, her name is kind of a little bold, and I'm happy that they've agreed that we're going to speak to us. So a little bit about the speakers. Karla McCafferty, she's going to speak for options. And she will talk about the intersection of behavioral health and the social determinants of health. And you probably know some of this, but options provides integrated behavioral health and physical health services in Josephine and Jackson Counties. Options works closely with community partners such as Josephine County Food Bank, and helps address the needs of our community that also impact behavioral health. So Karla has been the director of options, executive director since 2011. She has over 35 years of experience in the healthcare field in the U.S. and has a master's in public health degree. And one other thing, and she may never forgive me for this, but she plays guitar and she sings, and she does a very mean rendition of St. James Infirmary, which is also known as the Gambler Blues. That's right. And Josephine Sze will present on behalf of the Josephine County Food Bank, or the Josephine County Food Bank, and the intersection between food security and community health. Through a partnership with over 25 local agencies, the food bank provides food to over 18,000 people in our county every month, in addition to direct food support. The county food bank works with our community to create long-term solutions to food insecurity. The partnership with organizations like Options are just one example. I guess we'll hear about this afternoon. And Josephine has been the executive director of the Josephine County Food Bank since 2021. And we'd like to welcome them up, please.
So last one change.
Yeah.
So while that PowerPoint gets set up, I just want to say it warms my heart that the Rotary is still working on the foreign exchange program. And one of the reasons it warms my heart is my daughter was a foreign exchange student for Rotary when I was in the Wednesday group. And it was interesting because she was at Hidden Valley High School and she'd never talked about doing anything like that. An announcement was just made over the loudspeaker and she heard it and thought that sounds interesting. And so she applied and was able to be a recipient of that exchange program. And it was really interesting that she had applied to go to, at that time, South Korea was one of the countries that was accepting students from the program. And so she had always wanted to go there. And so she signed up and they accepted her and she started learning the language. And several weeks before she was supposed to leave, that program had to pull out of the Rotary exchange. And the only country that could still take someone was Belgium. And we went home and looked at a map where, where is Belgium? It's this tiny little country. And we didn't even know what part of Belgium it was because they speak Dutch and French there. Neither language she knew. And so that was a really challenging time for her to try to decide whether she still wanted to go or not, given she didn't know the language, nothing about the country. It wasn't what she was sort of planning for.
But she didn't want to lose out on the opportunity and have have everyone leave and several weeks later where she went, so she went. And it was quite a challenging year, but I tell you, she came back a totally different person and much more self-confident and personally empowered than the person who left. And she went on to go to University of Oregon and join their flagship program there, which is another exchange and immersion program, and subsequently spent lived in both China and Taiwan because of that. So anyway, it's just really nice to hear that's still ongoing. It just makes such a difference in young people's lives. So when she went off to university, after coming home from that, it wasn't even like it was anything. I mean, that was a piece of cake compared to leaving for Belgium. So thanks for having me and Josephine here today. Okay, great. So we're ready to go. This is really distracting. Should I take it off or leave it? And I feel like I don't know. It's a serious topic, so it feels strange wearing this hat. So just take that into account. So most of us, I recognize a lot of the folks here. Most folks are familiar with Options for Southern Oregon. So we've been around about 43 years and a nonprofit. And the large bulk of our work is mental health services, but we've also over the last, I would say 7 or 8 years, really expanded to providing a lot more substance use treatment services and also physical health care, and we have pharmacy and dental and that type of stuff. So we move to the next slide. And this slide basically speaks to what I was just talking about, so we can go on to the next one there. And most folks know this. I'll just do a couple quick slides around mental illness. People in this room, I'm sure, recognize how relatively prevalent that is for folks to have mental health concerns, and it really runs the gamut. People with more serious mental illnesses, and then I won't say non-serious mental illness, but illness that doesn't impact people's day-to-day functioning as much as a serious mental illness would. So if we can move to the next slide. Most of us who struggle with a mental health concern at some point of our lives are able to manage that. We can manage that through different strategies that we have, deep breathing, mindfulness, some physical health care as well, things like that. And we can manage that. And maybe sometimes some use of the medication and therapy services. But there's a percentage of the population that when they have a mental illness, it's what gets labeled in our field and in the literature as a serious mental illness. And that illness is one that impacts a number of areas pretty significantly of functioning in our lives. I think people are familiar with what that looks like. So maybe difficulty caring for oneself, keeping employment, difficulty paying bills, the things that we need to do to maintain a household. And sometimes, but not all the time, it can also include, seeing and hearing things that aren't there, right? Those psychotic type of features. So if we go to the next slide. As I talked about earlier, the prevalence of mental health concerns is pretty common, more so in women than men. And the young people, and this probably doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, are a group that is more prominently affected. Less so in people ages 50 and older, but we are seeing senior citizens an increase in mental health concerns in the older population. And people who report that they're have 2 races or more tend to be more heavily affected by mental health concerns. Now, what's interesting is that even though we talk about any type of mental illness, the rate of that being about 1 in 4 adults in the US, the rates of serious mental illness, what I was talking about in terms of having a significant impact on one's life, is closer to 4 to 6% of the population, so a much smaller number. We can move to the next slide here.
So what has been talked about more and more in the last number of years, and I'm sure many people are familiar with this, is that the possibility of developing mental illness, we're learning, is much more tied to our life experiences than we may have understood and believed to be the case in the past. And so there's specific folks who are in our community and population that tend to be more affected by mental health concerns. And a lot of times those are folks who are have poor socioeconomic backgrounds, who are in groups that have been more historically marginalized in our communities. So members of the BIPOC community, people from the LGBT community, people of other ethnic backgrounds. So people who historically have been quite honestly discriminated against, and oftentimes systemically discriminated against, and that has an impact on people's mental health. And I don't think any of that's surprising, but it's just really nice to see that more and more we're talking about these other things that affect our mental health. And these things, and people are probably familiar with this, social determinants of health. Have people heard that term, social determinants of health, recently? Most of this room has. That's great. And the neat thing about social determinants of health is that there are things that we can change. There are things that we can impact upon to improve people's overall health, including their mental health and their physical health. We do that through policy, through the way we set up the systems, to where we decide to put funding. And, you know, I'm going to just kind of pause for a minute and just talk about the sort of overall picture of mental health, because one of the things that I find working in this field is it's really interesting sometimes how quickly we are to assign a mental illness quote to someone who's acting differently than we would act in a particular situation. And I can tell you, and there's people in this room who are familiar with that, that it's not easy, it's not simple to provide someone with a diagnosis of a mental illness. I mean, generally it takes our clinicians easily, you know, an hour and a half to do that initial assessment. And then there's continued conversation and observation as we move forward. But I frequently hear people assigning things to people we may see in the community as a mental health concern over behavior like that, because obviously they're mentally ill. And one of the things that I think people don't realize, this might sound really basic, so you know, I apologize if it is, but mental illness is different. It's different than a developmental disability. It's different than dementia. It's different than a substance use disorder, which can also affect people in a way that may make them look like what we historically thought is mental illness. So it's something that we just need to really, when we're considering that, it really takes a really thorough evaluation to make that determination and decide how we move forward with treatment on that. So the social determinants of health, if we move to the next. Okay, so we'll move one more slide. So these are the things we're familiar with when we look at social determinants of health, right? People's income and employment significantly linked to mental illness in people. Education, housing, access to healthcare is huge, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Neighborhood conditions, access to nutritious food. More and more, we're finding the impact that access to nutritious food has on people's mental health conditions, even more so in some studies than unemployment does. The anxiety and the depression that results from that when you have food scarcity or you're not able to access adequate food is huge, which is why we do a lot of the work that we do with the food bank. So what are we doing? What are we doing at Options to address some of these things? We're going to move to the next couple of slides here. Let's see. So In 2017, prior to 2017, actually, we expanded to including primary care services in our behavioral health clinics. So we have primary care both here in our clinics in Josephine County and in Jackson County, because we know that and also dental care, because we know that access is a huge issue for people. And if people are coming in for behavioral health services, it can also access primary care and maybe dental health services. Then we're addressing a lot of their healthcare needs in one easier to access visit. And our clinicians and case managers and other staff, oftentimes working with someone, they'll bring up other complaints that they have about their physical well-being. And we're able to connect those individuals directly with the provider we have in-house, who understands the nature of mental health concerns and substance concerns, and can look at that whole picture of that person and work with the other staff that we have to make sure that they get to their appointments, they get their medications if they need that, and that they're taking care of their overall health. And our primary care providers now also provide a number of them medication-assisted treatment for people who have, who are opioid dependent or alcohol dependent. And that really is a huge area of treatment. That's one of our public policy decisions that continues to be discussed and enforced. And it is an area of big debate a lot of times. Politically around the use of medication to address particularly opioid like heroin use. But it's a huge advantage for people to address those cravings that they have, because these are, as everybody here knows, these are hugely addictive substances, and be able to help them get back on the path to recovery. A lot of our services that we offer are in the community. That's another huge piece for addressing access. So we place staff where we are in those, what we would call more of those folks who are living on the margins of society, or people who are more likely to face mental health concerns. So we have staff placed at community corrections to work with individuals there who may be struggling with mental health concerns or substance use concerns. We have people in most of the schools in our counties and cities. We have staff located at medical clinics, staff who work with Head Start, staff who work with child welfare on families that are struggling and may lose and may face out-of-home placements for their children, or children in foster care. We do a lot of work around getting people connected to competitive employment. So one-to-one support for people who have mental health and substance use disorders to get competitive employment and to get back to school. So it's not just therapy, it's not just coming in and seeing someone in the clinic. A lot of our folks are working out in the communities with people to address that access to services and help that they need. Peer services are huge. I think people are familiar with that. Peer services have been around forever in the substance abuse arena, and they've been around for a long time in the mental health arena too. So people with lived experience who can really connect with people at the one-to-one level. And then open access. And I want to move to the next slide here if I can. So open access is a model that we started using back in about, I think it's probably been since 2016 or so. And that is same-day access to mental health care. And most recently in the last year, we've been able to expand that to substance use treatment too. So people can walk into any of our clinics Monday through Friday. Most of our clinics are open till 6 or 7 at night, Monday through Friday, and get an assessment same day. So it's like a walk-in, right? Like you would do for medical care. And what we have found and you walk in and you actually talk to a treatment provider, so a mental health clinician or a substance use counselor, and whatever you're choosing is. And what we have found is that is a huge way to increase people's access, because when we get brave enough to actually go
and talk to somebody. You know how that is, I'm ready to go, I wanna go now, you know? And if we give people an appointment a week out or 2 weeks out, you know, people don't come back as frequently as if they can get in and see someone right then and get assigned to a clinician or a counselor. Now, I'm gonna digress for a minute and just chat for a little bit about this. Another thing I hear pretty frequently in our community is, you know, lack of treatment providers. The lack of mental health providers and lack of substance abuse providers. And I can tell you just from our experience and with the other treatment providers in our community that are here, when it comes to, let's talk about substance use treatment. When it comes to outpatient substance use treatment, we have room. We have capacity at our organization. We have capacity at ADAPT. There's capacity at OnTrack to take people in who need outpatient substance abuse treatment services. What we struggle with in our state is residential treatment. There is not enough residential treatment beds for adults or youth. And a lot of the individuals that we work with need residential treatment. It's really hard to get away from, you know, the use of drugs and alcohol when your whole environment is, you know, that's the environment that you're in. So that's the piece that we struggle with. When it comes to mental health services, this is really an interesting dynamic. There's a lot of things going on here with regards to mental health services. We have walk-in, people can walk in, well over 90% of every of folks who walk into our clinic can see someone that day. And that's for an hour and a half appointment. So you can imagine how many staff we have to have available to be able to respond with an hour and a half appointment to folks that walk in for a mental health assessment. What we struggle with, and what I'm finding that we're struggling with here, and I think across the state, is so much attention has been being paid to mental health services. Like when I'm talking to you guys about mental health and substance use, everybody's shaking their head. And you guys, I know you guys know this stuff, right? So that kind of speaks to a lot of the increased education that's been being provided out there around mental health services. And there's been more and more emphasis in our state on funding public mental health services. So it's gotten to the point really for public mental health services that most clinicians in our area are providing mental health services, whether it's working for us or whether it's working privately for people who are on Medicaid, for example. It's getting harder and harder to find service providers if you're a private insurer, if you have private insurance. I'm going to be just honest about that in our community and in other communities across the state. And it's also going to be challenging to get maybe the frequency of services someone might want through a community mental health program, because we do lose a lot of people to private practice. That's become a huge trend lately. And we, as community mental health providers, become the provider for a lot of times people who have more struggles and more complex needs. And people are not going into the field at the rate that they used to. So everybody who wants a job in mental health services, who has the appropriate credentialing can get it, I think is pretty much working. Whether they're working privately or whether they're working for a community mental health program. So, and that's one of the challenges we've had. If you've looked at our job page lately, we're chronically looking for people. But at any rate, like I said, over 90% of people that can come in. Generally, if people aren't seen, it's because they're getting there later in the day and we don't have the time to do a full hour and a half assessment, and then you come in the next day and see us. So, and as you can see, just this year alone, up through this month, it's been about 3,500 people across Josephine and Jackson that have walked in and received same day access for mental health, and about another 700 for substance use. And as we move forward, what we're looking at is we're adding some additional transitional housing
That's almost completed now. We've got another 10, we've got another 10 units of transitional housing for folks with mental health and addiction concerns. We're working on expanding our mobile crisis team, so we have 2-person response out into the community for calls. And also people have been hearing about the deflection program in our community, and we'll be a part of that, working with the Sobering Center and Community Corrections and our other substance abuse provider programs. Let's see, I'm losing track of my slides. We can move through that one. And finishing up here, so community partnerships are also a huge avenue in which we help address social determinants of health in our community. Many community partners are focused on one or more social determinants of health, like the food bank. And we collaborate with them at the management level and at the service level of actually helping our clients get to those providers to get the assistance they need. And the Josephine County Food Bank is one of those folks. So I don't know what Josephine is. Oh, there she is. All right, so she's gonna come up and chat. And then I think when we're all done, if there's any questions, we can do that. If that's okay. So thank you. Thanks, Josephine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karla. One second.
I think Leonora is free, just if anybody wants to run back there and get something done with advertising that. I think it really depends the, skeletons and.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me in Karla today. And Karla, that was an incredibly informative presentation. I actually learned a lot that I didn't know previously. So thank you so much. My notes are loading, so bear with me. Actually, I'll start by telling a little story. Patrice today actually informed me of this cute little story behind what is my favorite photo that's ever come out of our organization. Behind me, we have one of our amazing volunteers. Her name is Jamie. She comes every single Tuesday. And last year, when we were looking at redoing our website, we had a professional photographer come and get some really high quality shots of our volunteers in action. And this was not staged or planned in any way. She literally pulled that potato out and held it. And the photographer managed to get a shot. And I feel like at its core, it is incredibly indicative of the work that we do, because everything that we do is done with love and for love. And so that's why I like to start all of my presentations with this, my favorite photo on the face of the planet.
And Mary.
Go back. Go back. You gotta say it. Round of applause for Mary for also being an amazing volunteer. There's actually a lot of you in this room that are amazing volunteers, specific to our organization. So I'm just gonna take a second to thank every single one of you. Planners aren't loading, so we're just gonna do this. All right, slide please. Okay, so a little about us. I'm sure many of you are fairly aware of our organization, but we are the Josephine County Food Bank, and we are an independent nonprofit that serves all of Josephine County. Our primary mission is to feed people in need, and those are the low and no income residents of Josephine County. Our secondary mission is to end hunger before it has a chance to happen. And we're going to go into how that all happens. I want to zoom out for a second because the discrepancy between hunger at the state level, the national level, and the local level is fairly indicative of how challenging the problem is to solve. And so we're going to zoom out for a second. So hunger in America. In America, there are 47 million people that are food insecure. That translates to roughly 1 out of every 7 people in the United States. Of those people, 14 million are children, and that means roughly 1 out of every 5 children in the United States is food insecure. They do not have enough access to healthy food to live an enriching, supportive life. And hunger exists everywhere in the United States. There isn't a single county in the US that isn't in some way inflicted by hunger. So next slide, please. So what does that mean for us locally? What does that mean for Josephine County? Well, I'll start with a statistic. We feed over 18,000 people every single month. That's 1 out of every 5 people in our county is accessing emergency food services every single month, compared to 1 out of every 7 people in the US and 1 out of every 6 people in Oregon. So hunger here is more pervasive than it does in other areas. 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5 children is food insecure. Oh no, I'm sorry, I take that back. 1 out of every 4 children in Josephine County is food insecure. Roughly 25% of all kids in our county are food insecure. And we serve a multitude of people. That's individuals, families, seniors, children, working individuals, those with developmental disabilities, as well as those who are unhoused. We serve anyone who is facing food insecurity. But the primary people we serve are, next slide, children and seniors. 1/3 of the people that we serve are children, and 1/3 of the people that we serve are seniors. Another little fact about Josephine County, seniors are the group most at risk to become homeless in our area. And there's many reasons for that. There are many seniors who live on Social Security. They exist on a fixed income, and when the rates of everything are rising substantially, their income isn't keeping pace with that. And so we are seeing more and more seniors fall into houselessness and also needing our services. Next slide, please. Who are the people that we serve? It's 1 out of every 5 people in our county. That means that it is your neighbor, it is your friend, it is probably your preschool teacher, or someone that you know very deeply. Something that is very challenging with hunger, and then also, I'm sure as Karla can agree with, mental illness, is that it's a silence thing. People don't like to discuss it. People don't like to discuss the fact that they aren't doing well, that they can't fully support themselves. And so it is pervasive in our community, but it is also incredibly silent. So realistically, you know many people who are suffering, but are just very quiet about it. Next slide, please. So why do we do what we do? Why is it important that people have enough food to eat? Well, because we truly believe that no one should be hungry. Absolutely, no one should be hungry. And there's so much food that exists in the world, and specifically in the United States. And the fact that we waste 30% of everything that is ever produced, there's not one reason why anyone in our community should be hungry. But then there's also the short-term effects of hunger, which are very difficult to overcome. I'm sure if anyone here has missed more than a lunch or a dinner in a day, you understand how distracting it can be. You understand that feeling of hunger and how it's hard to navigate through your day when you're thinking, oh man, I'm so hungry, I wish I could eat, why can't I eat right now? And then the long-term effects, if that goes on unchecked, the long-term effects can be deadly. Okay, so why are food insecurity and health in any form connected? Well, for the reasons that we've already talked about, but because there are very direct correlations between having enough access to not just food, but nutritious food and health of our bodies. If left unchecked, food insecurity can often lead to, poor nutrition mixed with food insecurity can lead to like high blood pressure, diabetes, weak bones, thin skin. I mean, we're not going to go into the list of everything, but there are so many contributing factors. It makes us unwell when we do not have enough food to eat, and specifically enough nutritious food to eat. And then Karla's already gone into the mental health aspect of this, but when we are food insecure, we don't have enough nutritious food for our bodies, our minds, and our brains suffer. 40% of all food insecure households in Oregon reported that they suffered from severe psychological distress. The long-term effects of not knowing when your next meal is going to be are absolutely debilitating. When we see clients at our local pantries, we're not seeing them on the best day they've ever had. We're seeing them on probably one of their worst days. And when we take into account the physical and psychological effects that unchecked hunger, unchecked malnutrition brings about, and we look at the fact that 1 out of every 5 people in our county isn't getting enough to eat, it is a community health issue. We tend to think of hunger in personal terms, right? On an individual basis. But what are the effects of this in our community? What are the effects of kids consistently not having the ability to focus in school? What are the effects of someone being unable to do their job? What are the effects of unchecked chronic illness doing in our community? So that's a point that I really, really like making, because at the end of the day, I really consider our organization a community health organization, because we are focused on making sure that all of our low and no income members are able to access the nutrition that they need in order to live a healthy, productive life. And when all of us can do that, our community does better overall. So, hunger doesn't exist in a vacuum. Hunger is a symptom. And at the end of the day, hunger is a symptom of poverty. So although we are a food distribution organization at our core, that is our primary mission. What we're really doing is actually working on these root causes of hunger. We are an anti-poverty organization at our core, because food alone, calories on a plate, isn't going to solve hunger. We've tried doing that. The charitable food system has tried doing that since the 60s, and hunger has only gotten worse. So we need to move food to people so that their immediate needs are met. But then we also need to work on all of these root causes that allow hunger to exist in the first place. Next slide, please. Hunger is also trade-offs. I think one of the things that not many people realize is that when people are going hungry, it's because they're making these decisions every single day. Am I going to buy food, or am I going to pay my rent? Am I going to buy food, or am I going to continue the life-saving medication that I need? Am I going to buy food, or are my kids going to daycare? Right? So when we look at making sure that people are fed, we are making sure that they have the ability to choose to make these impossible choices. When we supply the food, it allows them to use their money in other places that they need and that can be harder to find assistance in. Our organization has a very low barrier for entry, which means that when you are falling on hard times, we are one of the first organizations that can support you. And hopefully through that food support, you are able to do other things with your money and help and not have to make these impossible choices between food and all of the other crucial life-saving utilities and medications that people need. Okay, so how do we serve? How are we ending hunger in Josephine County? How are we doing all of the things that I just talked about? Well, again, our primary way of serving our community is through emergency food distribution. And so through a network of about 25 to 30 partner agencies, we moved last year 2.4 million pounds of food. We run sites where pantries exist, which is where you get like a grocery box of food. And then we're also partnered with meal sites where they get like hot meals to those in need. We're also partnered with supplemental agencies like the Women's Crisis Support Team, Options, and school pantries. We also operate our own network of mobile pantries in underserved and incredibly rural areas where those services don't exist otherwise. And we currently operate a mobile pantry in Merlin, Wolf Creek, and Williams. And in all of those locations, we are the only pantry that exists. We're the only place where low to no income residents can get food. And in Wolf Creek, other than the gas station, we are the only place that you can get food. I lost my notes, but maybe Christina remembers the number of people that we feed through our mobile distributions each month. 1,200?
1,200.
Okay, awesome. So through our mobile distributions, we're feeding 1,200 people each month, and that was a big expansion on our part this year. We've been running the mobile pantry in Wolf Creek for years now, and we're able to add the additions of Merlin and Williams. So we're really excited to be able to support these communities with the end goal of always finding an organization, a local organization, who can then take over for us, because we do believe that communities are the strongest and are the healthiest when they're supported from within. But until that happens, we're there to meet the need. Oh, go back, please. And so in addition to providing food, we also, much like Karla, understand health in a very holistic approach. So we are also connecting people to services that are otherwise going to support them, whether that's connecting them with options so they can receive mental health and physical health services. We also have community navigators from organizations like the Mid-Road Foundation, DHS, and they help connect people to medical care, so access to OHP if you haven't signed up for that, access to SNAP, HUD, all of those things. And so when access to all of those things is taken together, a person is much better supported and easier supported. So they don't have to go to like 5 different organizations and try and piece that together in their busy schedule. We're really trying to offer everything that a person could need right when they come to get food, because they're already going to be there. In addition to all of the food moving that we do, we also rescue food. And so each year, we rescue over 500,000 pounds of food from our local grocery stores. And this is food that is perfectly fine to eat, but maybe isn't visually the most beautiful. So like a blemished apple or something a little closer to its expiration date. Again, globally, we waste 30% of all food that's ever created. And for seafood, it's actually closer to 40%. Insane. It's unimaginable and it should never happen. So we go around to our grocery stores and we pick up as much food as we possibly can, and we redistribute that to our community in need. And each year, it's over 500,000 pounds of food that otherwise would go to waste. And so in addition to all of the food stuff, we also operate Raptor Creek Farm, which is our organization's way of putting nutrition at the forefront of everything that we do. Raptor Creek Farm is a 2.5 acre farm that is also 3 different greenhouses, a berry patch, and I know that I'm forgetting something, a community garden. And Raptor Creek Farm allows us to grow produce to meet the needs of our community. In the charitable food system, we get food that travels well and other people don't want. So we often don't get things like berries because they're delicate and they're bruisey and they're expensive. So who would ever donate those to us in any measurable quantity, right? And we can't buy those. So we started a berry patch because our community wanted berries, and it was going to be the one way we were going to be able to get those berries to them. Raptor Creek Farm really does focus on nutrition first. And last year we grew 381,000 servings of produce on our farm for free for our community. And I know that there's a few Raptor Creek Farm volunteers in here, so can I please have you stand up? There we go, thank you. Thank you. And also down Israel. Okay, he raised his hand, there we go. So Raptor Creek Farm allows us to put nutrition first. It also, in addition to being a production farm, is also an education farm. And so we run a multitude of adult and youth programs out of Raptor Creek Farms that we believe support the needs of our community. And I will just go into one story because I feel like it is really the heart of what we do. Our first YIP cohort, YIP is a youth internship program, involved 8 interns spending 11 weeks on Raptor Creek Farm, learning hard skills around agriculture and soft skills around leadership, as well as the ability to meet mentors across our county, so that when you graduate from our program, they maybe had an idea of where they wanted to go. Not all of these kids, not all of the youth in Josephine County are college bound. And so introducing them to mentors in the green job sector and the blue collar sector are a way for us to support them and prevent them from needing us in the first place. We had one intern, her name is Daisy. She was previously homeless. She went through a YIP program. She absolutely loved it. She developed an absolute passion for outdoor education and specifically teaching. She started the garden at her school, the gardening club at her school, and she now has an idea for her what she wants to do in life. She wants to perform outdoor education. But through YIP, she also earned a stipend, and that stipend allowed her to purchase her first car. This is a teenager who was previously homeless who now has a vehicle. That vehicle means that there are less barriers to transportation, right? She can go to school, she can go to a job, she can go to all of the extracurricular things that she does. That is setting this woman up for a much brighter future. Next. We'll skip this one, but here's our impact by the numbers. We'll wrap this up. Let's go to the last slide, please. here's some of our community partners. How can you help us? Oh my gosh, there's so many ways. Like any other nonprofit, I'm gonna sit here and ask you to donate, volunteer, and be an advocate for us. But because it is this group specifically, can we go to the next slide? Okay, I've got some specific asks. If you are in any way moved by what you've heard and you want to be involved, we are currently looking for event/outreach volunteers specifically. We really need that. We're also looking for committee members for the various committees that we have. Please help us navigate what we do. We're also looking for food donors, specifically with the Grants Pass Food Project. It is an easy way to donate, and it is a fun way to donate. And then you can also volunteer at a local pantry. Our pantries are local pantries, like the Rock, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, Grants Pass, Dorcas, B Street. They're always looking for volunteers. They're always in need of volunteers. So if you have the time and the energy, please reach out to one of them. They could use it deeply. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our presenters. I'm sorry we're running a little bit late. So if you could stay afterwards, we'll entertain questions directly to you. And thank you again for all the work that you do. It's so super important and very informative for us. Thanks. Okay, who's up? Callie's gonna come have us all sing together. We might have to make Steve pay again, so we just have to say, come on up. And we'll have our hat contest. Oh, but first we would like to just give Steve a little recognition. We have a little cupcake for him. But no saying. Happy birthday to our dear our community leaders. Okay.
Amazing presentations.
So we did have an informal contest today. And our judges, Greg and Mary Millard, Val Lovelace, and Lisa Higgins, all came up with their picks. And overwhelmingly first place, La Muerta Tommy Gray. Come on up here. In second place, Judy Baskin.
Actually, I'm accepting this on behalf of my childhood friend who decorated my hat for me. Thanks, a school teacher in town.
All right. And in third place, Janie Newell. Where are you? No lighting from us in that purple outfit.
I don't want Steve to have to eat his cupcake by himself, so there's cupcakes for everyone.
All right. I think it's fitting that I quote my favorite hero, Garfield the cat, in saying Halloween is my kind of holiday. It's not like all those other stupid holidays. I don't get pine needles in my paws. There's no dumb bunny, no fireworks, no relatives, just candy. Boom. You go out, you get candy. It's as simple as that. So I don't know if we have our song. Oh, you did. All right. So I'm just going to tell you quickly, because we are running late, that when I was little, I wanted to make the delicious food that my aunties did, but I couldn't remember all of the ingredients in my favorite dish, and it was called a Halloween stew. So one of my aunties, who was very musical, put together a spell. Oh, wait, I don't mean a spell, a song. That would help me remember, and it went something like this. Chicken lips and lizard hips, you gotta stir. And alligator eyes, monkey legs and buzzard eggs, and salamander thighs, rabbit ears and camel rears, tasty toenail pies. Stir them all together, it's a Halloween surprise. Okay, now, aren't your taste buds just tingling? Your mouth watering? I know mine is. And let's try it together this time. Oh, and you have to stir the stew like this. So come on, everybody, start stirring your stew. Did you bring your stirrers? I know Claudia has a broom. Oh, chicken lips and lizard hips and alligator eyes, monkey legs and buzzard eggs and salamander thighs, rabbit ears and camel ears and tasty cornmeal pies. Stir 'em all together for a Halloween surprise. And there you have it. Now it's time. Happy Bucks. Is anybody happy? Do you feel a spell coming over you? Yes.
I don't know if you guys saw the sneak preview, but Steve came in and interviewed my boss Jessica and did a little bio about the Boys and Girls Club, and it was amazing. So we got it in, and the board members read it. We had some tears. So thank you, Steve. So I've got a couple happy bucks for the birthday boy.
All right. Oh, okay. Deb and Red.
Well, I'll just do a little ad for the Grand Pass High School Theater. They're going to do a play, the weekend of the 8th and 9th, and then the next weekend also. It should be a lot of fun.
Nice. Before I forget, we don't want to forget Leonora back there doing the amazing painting of faces. And Leonora, I have a little token for you, a little muerte token. So,
Can I just say before anybody starts sneaking out, if you're wearing a cool hat or dressed up in any way, don't leave before I get a picture of you, okay? Okay, we gotta do a group one, but like to get some individuals as well. Thank you.
no one else is thankful on this one. Oh, here we go.
I'm gonna thank Jan, she's really good stuff. But I would like to say a shout out to Jan and all of the farm folks. Every year, we have this project called the Squash Project, which if you carve pumpkins and you know how hard it is. Last year, Jan and crew did over 3,000 pounds of this squash that they're now working on right now, which is great because if we get the squash from a seed farmer, they just want the seeds. So we get the opportunity to hand out delicious squash to many people that need it, along with recipes of how to cook it. So the delicata squash is what we're having. So thank you. This is for Jan.
That's it.
It's fun. I have happy bucks for Josephine and Karla for showing up today. And just two quick things. I was impressed, amazed by their command, their knowledge of, their organization and everything they do. But maybe more importantly, behind that, I really felt a lot of heart behind it. And anyway, I just want to thank you too for coming and really appreciate the work you do.
Scare me. Well, my goodness, I'm a friendly sculpture.
I mean, skeleton. I have 5 happy bucks. I was talking to my daughter who's been having a cold. And she was, no, I'm not gonna do anything for Halloween, Mom. And I said, but Rox, we really need to be happy and do silly stuff. So thank you, Club, for doing silly stuff.
I have a few happy bucks. I had a birthday this weekend, so I'm happy that I had another birthday. Although Bruce County, and I'm really appreciative of the addiction community that we have in our area. From the volunteer groups that come together to the professional community. It's an amazing appreciation for how to view something in a different way, changing your perspective, rather than thinking of it with negativity, think of it like diabetes or heart attack or whatever else. It's just another healthcare issue. And so I'm so appreciative of that.
Happy bucks for one of my dear friends, Owen Martin. I'm hoping he will consider coming more often.
You're here.
I've got 5 happy bucks because I was just at the county courthouse at the county clerks being a voter day observer. And I have to say that is a crack team of people who are serious administrators who want everything to be exactly right, and that's what they do. So that I learned a lot by being down there and observing, and I would suggest the next time there's an election, you guys do it too, because it's really very educational.
All right, thanks for giving. Okay, looks like that may be it. Did I miss anybody? If not, back to you, Judy. Oh, well, wait a minute, we have cards. All right, speaking of Owen, shall we give Owen a card? Pick the card, any old card. Okay, we have.
5 of spades.
Who's got it? Who's got it? Right. You got it right here. Patrice. Okay, Patrice.
Thank you, Kelly, thanks everyone, it was an absolutely delightful group and day and what fun event. Okay, photo, you want us all to come up here? And I'm gonna read to you, thought for the day while we're. Where is she? Oh, okay, so, thought for the day, this, you've heard this before, but I want my children to have everything I didn't have as a young person growing up. Then I want to move in with them. And that's some Phyllis Diller. Okay, Janie, where would you like us? Thanks, everyone.